So as we start to move into our homework, you'll have to work with MyLab Math. That's where all your assignments will be located at. And just to bring you to your attention, a few things as far as the assignment goes. I'm just going to highlight a few things. We'll start with Chapter 1, Section 1. It's titled An Overview of Statistics. If you look at in the book, you'll see words like population and parameter. Notice that they both begin with the letter P, so they kind of go together. So population parameter will be related. As far as the definition of population, population can be very confusing. Basically, what you have to do is read very carefully whatever the question's about, and you have to pick up on this word all. The all could be like the whole United States, or it could be the city of Owensboro, or it could be like a college like the Owensboro Community Technical College, or it could even be my classroom. So the population, you have to really read carefully. If it represents if what's being described represents the whole population, then or the word all, then it's actually called a population. So if we have if a population exists, then any kind of numerical characteristics will be called parameters. So a parameter will go along with a population. Let's see here, get my little eraser out here. So if you see the word sample and population are also related to each other. So these two guys are also related. But the population represents all. A sample is only a portion, or they use the word subset of the population, so it does not mean all of it. So in many instances where the population is too large, the only way we can actually study the population is pull out a sample of the population. So it's hard to study the whole United States, so it only makes sense to try to pull out a sample or a portion of the population. So if a sample is being described in the homework, statistic is going to be tied with sample. Notice how sample and statistic both start with S's, so they kind of go together. So a statistic is going to exist if we're talking about a sample, and the statistic is going to be some numerical characteristic of the sample. So we're going to be involving some type of number. So numerical characteristic is really some type of number, whether it's a fraction, decimal, integer, whole number, percent, all that can be involved. So in 1.1, look for the words population and sample. You're also going to see the word parameter and statistic. Note that population and parameters both start with P, so they're going to go together as well. Sample and statistic both start with S, so they're going to go together as you work through 1.1. Okay. So 1.2 starts to talk about data classification. So in data classification, when we talk about data, there's going to be what's called qualitative data, and there's going to be what's called quantitative data. Qualitative data is going to be data that's really just a label. No numbers are going to be present, so there won't be any math to be used. So if you see data in the form of just labels that have actually no numbers, a lot of times we'll call that qualitative data. Quantitative data is data that has math computations present. So if I'm involving ordering or doing some type of adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, that's going to be quantitative data. And also when we talk about data classification, there's going to be 4 levels of determining what the data is as far as how it's measured. So there's this thing called levels of measurements. So they're going to be using the word like nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio. Those are going to be the 4 levels of measurement. In identifying those 4 levels, qualitative, there aren't any numbers present. It's just labels. So if what's given, as far as the data goes, if it's just labels, then we call that qualitative, or in other words, nominal. level of measurement. Ordinal is a little tricky. Ordinal level, it has both qualitative and quantitative present. So there are going to be numbers, but the only thing we can do with those numbers is put them in order. They can be rearranged. Interval is quantitative only. So if you interval data it's going to have only quantitative data, which means only numbers are going to be present. These numbers can be rearranged, but something else that can be done is they can be subtracted. In other words, the differences are important to us. Dates are good examples for interval data. So if the data is a bunch of dates, ordering and their difference can be useful in interpreting and making inferences from the data. Ratio is quantitative data as well. The numbers can be rearranged. The difference is useful, but also a ratio can be used. In other words, we can write things like fractions. So some things with ratios, what you can do is ask yourself, does doubling make sense? Or in other words, is something twice as big as the other piece of data? If doubling or twice as big seems to fit the data, then ratio would be its level of measurement. Some things to look for is if we're talking about some type of measurement, in other words, if you're talking about weights, like pounds or ounces, grams or kilograms, length, it could be like inches, feet, meters, yards, miles. Those are things that would fall under quantitative data. Volume, like liters or fluid ounces, quarts, gallons, things like that. That would be also under the ratio level of measurement. If we're talking sports, the number of home runs or touchdowns, things like that could be relevant in the data, and that data could be described also as quantitative, but it would be a ratio would be its level of measurement. So 1.3 would be the next section in chapter 1. I think that's the last section. What I want to talk about here in 1.3 is how to navigate my lab math. So if I go to my lab math, see if I can get you to there. So if I have these different questions, if we don't understand the question, like what's the difference between an observational study and an experiment, what you can do is go down here to the bottom toolbar, and you can see that you have tutoring, textbook, and get more help. The textbook would be very useful here. It would open up the textbook. And what you could do is it's going to take you to 1.3, and you can kind of start looking for that information in here. So there's an observational study and experiment. So it starts to talk about those words, observation and experiment, and you could find that answer by going to the textbook. So another, if I go to like question 10, notice how this has like animation down at the bottom. So if you click that, it'll give you some type of animation. Question 12, notice how it says video. This question is also, you can find this on, I think it's like page 21 of the textbook. So I think I have a video talking about that as well. This question here using the TI-84 calculator, because again, the graphing calculator is going to be used quite a bit in this class. And this is where we actually could create random numbers in doing a sample using the TI-84 to help us with creating a sampling. So if you click here, it'll give you a video, and it'll give you some things here that may be useful. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not, but you can kind of find information there. Let's see, another one like question 16. Notice how it says, help me solve this time. So sometimes they'll walk you through the question as well. And a lot of this learning, you can, by missing questions, just pay attention why you missed it. A lot of learning in statistics is going to be from getting answers wrong and doing them over. just keep that in mind. You can do that on your homework. You can fix answers, but you won't be able to fix answers on tests. So that is only a way to get yourself ready for the tests. So I hope you find that useful as we start to move in to the statistics class.